G'day guys, Gooks here for the Drunk Philosopher. Today I'm going to talk about Scott Morrison, the Australian Prime Minister. And I'm going to talk about his abject failure as a Prime Minister. The concept in Australia of a Prime Minister is you are in charge of what occurs federally across 7 states and territories. You are in charge of what happens in this nation. It is your call where the political power sits. And you're the political power. You're the Prime Minister. You make all the calls. Scott Morrison is a failure. He is a failure as a Prime Minister. There are many reasons why, but at the moment we're talking about COVID-19. We have never in the past of our country had a Prime Minister who has divided our nation geographically. And I mean that. Not only has he divided our nation geographically, he has also divided our nation in terms of power structures, political power structures. This is why he's failed. Now, you could argue whether what he's done with COVID-19 and so far as lockdowns and that. Well, by the way, he has done nothing for lockdowns. He has supported the people who now run this country. And there are 7 people who run this country. The premiers of every single state run this country right now, not the Prime Minister, because it is the 7 premiers that he has abdicated his power to. Okay? He has given the premiers of every single state the rights to lock down their borders, to decide how COVID-19 is managed within their own states, how long they can lock down for, what they do as far as the border shutdowns goes. It's all up to them. He abdicated his power. He has basically said, I don't want to be Prime Minister. I don't want to deal with this issue in so far as how we deal with COVID-19. I'm going to leave that up to the states. The states now run the country because the recession that we're currently coming into, the government can talk about budgets at the federal level. Scott Morrison can talk about budgets as much as he likes. He can do that. However, he can't make a budget and he can't make decisions whilst every single individual state has lockdowns to whatever degree they've got them to, and their borders are shut to each other to whatever degree they are shut to each other. You can't, at a federal level, make a budget. This is incompetence of the highest order. In fact, it's damn right unconstitutional. You see, we don't run like the Americans run, a republican system where each of the 52 states can individually do whatever. You know, the federal government's there basically as an oversight to make sure everything goes as far as they can. They've got certain powers, of course, military and things like this. But even individual police forces do not come under a federal jurisdiction. Whereas the federal government in Australia can put pressure and can actually influence what a state does in Australia with its police force. Of course it can. It's the federal government. We're a commonwealth of states. So now we've got a situation where you've got 7 states and territories doing their own thing. What's the Prime Minister doing? He's sitting back going, oh, what's going on? You know, I'm glad that they're dealing with it so I don't have to. Now, you might say that's a good thing, but it's not a good thing because it's unconstitutional. He is the captain of the ship, whether you like him or not. And it's pretty obvious with all the videos I've made, I don't like him. But he isn't handling the crisis. The crisis is being handled by all the premiers. The premiers are making all the big decisions. As far as the population goes, as far as civil liberties go, it's no longer the federal government. This is very, very bad. This is terrible. This is why you've got a situation in Victoria at the moment with Daniel Andrews bringing in some of the most draconian laws against civil liberties. And they're not really laws, by the way, ladies and gentlemen. He hasn't taken this to a Senate and declared it a law that you shall be fined or the cops can drag you away if you organise a protest or you are protesting the lockdowns. It's emergency powers. This isn't law. Okay? This is where it gets dangerous because Scott Morrison now, in order to deal, say, with Victoria, if he wanted to sort of, Dan Andrews has to tone this down. This is now getting ridiculous. This is now getting out of hand. The population is starting to get restless and out of control. Well, in order to deal with Dan Andrews, he would have to basically wrest control from all the other state premiers. Once the state premiers, though, have control, they're not going to want to get rid of it. They're going to want to keep it because COVID's still around, right? So he would have to then go to the federal court and basically do what Clive Palmer did to wrest the power back for a mandate that he himself created. See, he's created a situation where Australia is essentially now run by the state governments. That's not a good thing. And as much as I love the idea of Western Australia seceding from the rest of the nation and calling ourselves West Australia and being a separate country, not like this. Something has to give. Something has to give. And at the moment in Victoria, things are going to go wild. I can predict in the next month or so, there's going to be all hell breaking loose in that state. And when the people are called to task over who did what, Dan Andrews would actually be within his right to make the excuse of, well, the Prime Minister gave me full mandated powers to decide what to take and what to give to the people as far as civil liberties goes. He gave me that mandate. It's his fault. He can literally come out and say that because that's true. So our Prime Minister, Mr. Scott Morrison, has royally screwed this nation 3 ways to Sunday because he didn't want to take responsibility as our Prime Minister for the actions that have been undertaken. Now I'm going to talk briefly about the JobKeeper, job seeker issue. Now, JobKeeper I can understand in these times. A lot of people are in lockdown. A lot of businesses are struggling right now. And so if they get given a bit of extra money to keep their staff going, I don't necessarily have an issue with that. But then we find out today with the job seeker, which is the dole, that they're going to keep paying people. Last I heard, something around $1,300 a fortnight. They're going to keep paying that to people till March. Now, you might think that's a good idea, but it's not a good idea. I can see this turning into something like Sweden and the Nordic countries have, in the sense of a minimum income for everybody paid by the government. Here's the problem with that in Australia. We can't afford it. Our economy is not geared for it. We will collapse really quickly because the amount of taxes needed for that kind of idea to stay. And by the way, if you don't think that there's not going to be some very powerful lobby groups in Australia for the rights of people, the poor people on the dole and whatnot, saying we're going to keep this amount of money, it's unfair, we've been asking for a rise for years, you gave us a rise, we know it was COVID, but man, you can't just take money off of people. That's wrong. And we've got such a weak government at the moment at the federal level that I have no doubt that Scott Morrison will go, oh, okay, yeah. He is, it's spineless, craven coward. He really is. I can see what has occurred in COVID is going to has become such a major social disruption in our nation that I am absolutely sure that we will never get back to where we were. I think that's impossible now. And I have no idea where we're going because there's no vision for the future. It's all been panic, 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 panic. And now, once again, like in Victoria, you've got premiers, in his case, Dan Andrews, playing power politics over the people. And the Prime Minister can't do anything about it without going to the Supreme Court and undoing his own mandate. And COVID isn't going away. So how long does this stay aboard? It's sort of like the war on terrorism or the war on drugs. Drugs were never going to go away. Terrorism's always going to exist. Well, this is like a war on COVID. Well, COVID's never going away. It's always going to be here. COVID-19 will be here forever. No different than any other kind of flu, like the Spanish flu or something like that. It is not going away. These are dangerous times, my friends, and we must really start thinking about how we as a people, as a society, should be reacting to this and thinking about this. Our Prime Minister has failed us for the second time in 1 year. The first time, abdicating his responsibilities while Australia was burning to the ground and going to Hawaii, and then coming back and making an absolute fool out of himself, trying to make up for it, which he didn't. And the second time in COVID, abdicating his responsibilities as our Prime Minister to give his power to the individual state premiers without limitation. I have no idea where this is going to go, but I have a funny feeling that Australia is in deep trouble for many years to come. I'm Nathan Gooks-Fletcher. This is My Drunk Philosophy, and I'll catch you good folk down the road. Be good, be safe, don't be evil, and I'll see you later. Hooroo.